Grigori Rasputin, revered as a mystic, despised as a manipulator, and remembered as one of history's most enigmatic figures. His rise from a poor Siberian peasant to the trusted advisor of Russia's royal family sparked intrigue, scandal, and conspiracy. But beyond the legends and rumors, who was Rasputin? In this video, we reveal 8 startling truths about the Mad Monk, exploring his mysterious powers, his infamous reputation, and the bizarre circumstances surrounding his death. Rasputin is the only child who lives to adulthood. The early years of Rasputin's life remain a mystery to historians. The period before he became famous is still unknown, although researchers have gathered some information to partially reveal his childhood and youth. Rasputin is said to have been born into a family with 7 children, but none of his siblings survived to adulthood. Born into a peasant family in the small village of Pokrovskoye in Siberia, Rasputin's life was extremely difficult and deprived. Most families at that time would have multiple children in the hope that at least one would survive to adulthood, and Rasputin's case was no exception. In fact, a large part of the future priest's life was closely associated with manual labor. It wasn't until the late 1890s that he truly joined the Orthodox Church. Before that time, Rasputin was believed to have lived a simple peasant life with his wife and children. Yes, Rasputin was married, had children, and lived a peaceful rural life until a religious experience in 1897 completely turned his world upside down. Rasputin may have joined an illegal sect. In 1897, Rasputin embarked on a pilgrimage, visiting many towns and churches. During this pilgrimage, he came into contact with the Klist sect. One of the beliefs of the Klist sect is that humans can only come close to God through sin and repentance. Rasputin's spiritual awakening is often believed to be related to his involvement with the Klist sect, but there is no evidence to support this claim. Although Rasputin's lifestyle after his awakening had many similarities to the Klist followers, who were known for their indulgence in alcohol and debauchery. After his awakening, Rasputin traveled throughout the Russian Empire, proclaiming himself as a holy man with supernatural abilities such as healing. After the 1905 revolution, Rasputin was introduced to the Russian royal family. Over the years, he became increasingly close to the Romanov family. In 1907, Rasputin helped improve the condition of Tsarevich Alexei, the weak and sickly son of the Tsar. This event earned him the trust of Tsar Nicholas II, and especially Tsarina Alexandra. However, Rasputin's healing abilities were doubted by many. In fact, even those close to the royal family did not believe in this. Although he did indeed help Tsarevich Alexei, it is likely that it was due to his skills in hypnosis that he learned during his spiritual awakening. Hypnosis was quite common among the Orthodox clergy at that time, and Rasputin frequently used this ability, especially to impress noblewomen in the Russian aristocracy. Rasputin had terrible manners and poor hygiene. According to the accounts of most contemporaries, Rasputin's behavior was inappropriate for the Russian aristocracy. Like most peasants of the time, his lifestyle before joining the royal family was very simple. The use of knives and forks was not common among the peasant class, and therefore, this priest had difficulty adapting to the new life in the palace. According to many accounts, Rasputin's crude behavior was even too much for those from a peasant background. It is said that he would often lick the spoon before using it to scoop food for others, and frequently had food stuck in his beard. Furthermore, Rasputin rarely bathed and often carried an unpleasant body odor. Rasputin claimed to be Christ in miniature. Returning to 1897, after awakening spiritually, Rasputin traveled throughout the country, believed to heal people with his supernatural powers. Gradually, he established a reputation as a mystic and proclaimed himself a saint. Rasputin confidently embraced this title to the extent that he was willing to do anything to assert it to the Romanov family and the Russian nobility. He declared that he was sent by God to save the Russian Empire, knowing the time of his own death, and even told the French ambassador that despite his terrible sins, he was the miniature Christ. These words might have been considered the ravings of a madman if it weren't for a significant portion of the Russian nobility, including Empress Alexandra, who believed in and followed his words. Rasputin seduces many noble Russian women. Although self-proclaimed as a saint, Rasputin was immersed in many bad habits and vices. The Mad Monk, as many called him, was a heavy drinker. It was rumored that he rarely stayed sober, and when not drunk, he spent time seducing countless women in the royal court. In fact, despite a severe lack of personal hygiene, Rasputin still managed to captivate many noblewomen. There were even rumors of his illicit relationship with Empress Alexandra Fyodorovna. While this remains controversial, it cannot be denied that Rasputin had a significant influence on the Empress, to the extent that she blindly followed his advice when Tsar Nicholas II handed over the reins of the country to her in 1916 before heading to the front lines. As if Rasputin's political influence was not enough, his notorious reputation with women earned him many enemies among the upper class. The resentment of the aristocracy towards Rasputin grew, reaching its peak on the eve of the First World War in 1914. Impact on the First World War. Rasputin vehemently opposed Russia's participation in the First World War. He declared that the war would be a disaster for the country and would lead to unforeseen consequences for the monarchy. Despite his advice being ignored, Rasputin insisted on going to the front lines to bless the Russian army. This request was rejected by the commander-in-chief, Grand Duke Nikolai Nikolaevich, who had vowed to hang Rasputin if he dared to come near the front lines. However, Rasputin accurately predicted the initial catastrophic failures of the Russian Empire. This led Tsar Nicholas II to heed his advice in taking command of the army. As a result, the Tsar left St. Petersburg, leaving behind the Empress, who was strongly influenced by Rasputin, to govern the country on his behalf. The Tsar's direct leadership of the army could not alleviate the increasing deadlock with the Central Powers, and further eroded his credibility. Ultimately, Rasputin's prophecies about the devastating impact of the war on the Russian Empire and the monarchy became reality. Predict one's own death. The correspondence between Rasputin and Tsar Nicholas II after the king went to the front lines shows that this priest seemed to have a premonition of his own death. In a letter to the Tsar in December 1916, Rasputin wrote, "The divine senses that I will depart from this world before January 1st. If it is your own kin who cause my death, then none of your children will survive for more than 2 years." This chilling prophecy haunted the Russian royal family, and indeed, it was the complex relationships of the Tsar that led to Rasputin's tragic fate. Frustrated by his increasing influence, a powerful group of nobles in Petrograd, the name of St. Petersburg during World War I, planned to assassinate him in December 1916, just 2 months before the February Revolution erupted and ended the Romanov dynasty. Even more terrifying, Rasputin's prediction about the death of the Tsar's children came true with eerie accuracy. Was once the target of assassination attempts. The significant influence of Rasputin not only made him many enemies among the Russian nobility, but also led to strong condemnation from a large number of Orthodox priests of the Russian Orthodox Church, who denounced him as a self-proclaimed Christ reincarnate. Prominent among them was Sergei Trufanov, also known as Hieromonk Iliador. Iliador was one of the supporters of Georgy Gapon, a key figure in the 1905 revolution, and later vehemently criticized the mistakes of the Tsarist regime. He was also a staunch opponent of Rasputin, accusing the priest of the wrongdoings of the royal family and being outraged by his significant influence on the Tsar's family. On July 12, 1914, a peasant woman named Kionia Guseva, a supporter of Iliador, approached Rasputin on the street and stabbed him in the abdomen with a knife. Rasputin luckily escaped and survived the attack. The assassin was later diagnosed with a mental disorder and was detained in a psychiatric hospital. As for Ilyador, he fled to Norway immediately after hearing about the failed assassination. Prince Felix Yusupov, a Russian nobleman and a staunch enemy of Rasputin, also planned to eliminate this notorious priest. On December 29, 1916, Yusupov lured Rasputin to his palace. Here, along with accomplices Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich and politician Vladimir Purishkevich, Yusupov treated Rasputin to a sumptuous feast with poisoned cyanide-laced cakes and wine. But something strange happened. Despite ingesting a large amount of poison, Rasputin seemed unaffected and continued to enjoy the feast, as if nothing had happened. This unusual event left Yusupov and his accomplices extremely puzzled and angry. With no other option, Yusupov and his allies decided to resort to more drastic measures. They shot Rasputin multiple times, but the mad monk seemed to possess an extraordinary vitality as he survived the fatal shots. However, with countless wounds on his body, Rasputin was severely weakened. The assassins then threw him into the icy Malaya Neva River. The autopsy later revealed water in Rasputin's lungs, indicating that he drowned at the age of 47. Several months after Rasputin's death, the Tsar abdicated and the Russian Empire collapsed, ushering in a new chapter in the country's history.